The Indianapolis Colts have found their quarterback competition in Daniel Jones. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the evening. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and I'm here today breaking down day 2 of the legal tampering period, I guess day 2 of free agency, technically, for the Indianapolis Colts. Not as active as day 1 for the Colts, but they did make their own splash today that made some headlines. So we're going to talk about that big splash move that the Colts made. We're also going to discuss, the potential other moves they could be making this offseason and this free agency period. And we're also going to look at this overall roster and look at what the team might need and also just kind of where the weak points are on this Colts roster. But let's kick off today's show with the juicy topic, and that is the signing of Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones is coming to Indianapolis. The Colts gave him a pretty hefty one-year deal. It was a one-year deal, $14 million. It can get up to $17.7 million with playing time escalators and with I think it's like playoff performance boost and stuff like that. Like there is a way for it to get up to nearly $20 million with these escalators. And the Colts also guaranteed him quite a bit of money, $13.15 million guaranteed at signing. And I believe his cap hit for this deal is just under the $14 million. So there's not like a bunch of like bogus money or void years tacked onto it to keep the first year cap hit low. It's pretty much all that cap hit here in year 1. So nearly $14 million to get Daniel Jones here to be that competition for Anthony Richardson. Basically, this deal is right in line with where like bridge quarterback contracts are. So if you think like Gardner Minshew last year with the Las Vegas Raiders, this is kind of similar to that deal, except it's on a 1-year contract instead of a 2-year contract. But yeah, Daniel Jones coming to Indianapolis to compete with Anthony Richardson. And my overall thoughts on that are, I don't really think this is much of a competition still. I know that the money is kind of hefty, and the Colts have made this emphasis all offseason to say that, hey, this is an open competition. Whoever wins it in training camp is going to be our starter. But I would put kind of an asterisk on that in terms of saying, like, it's like the similar type of competition to when Richardson first came into the league and they said that he was competing with Gardner Minshew for the starting job in week 1. It was more so Richardson competing with himself to see who was going to be the starter in week 1. Like if Richardson comes into camp, looks out of shape and not interested and looks like he hasn't made any improvements, then they'll go with Daniel Jones. But I don't think there's anything that Daniel Jones can do to win this competition in camp. It really comes down to how Anthony Richardson looks and what Anthony Richardson does or doesn't do in training camp. That'll determine who the starter is for the Colts going into the season. Now, part of this signing and why I think coming to Indianapolis was intriguing for a player like Daniel Jones is that even if this isn't like a true competition, like, look, I'm sure Daniel Jones knows that he's not coming in here with a real competition. Like, it comes down to Anthony Richardson, what Anthony Richardson looks like. But the fact of the matter is Richardson's played fewer than 50% of his games in the NFL in terms of, from injuries to the benching that happened last year. Like there's a lot of reasons why Richardson has missed time. So if you're someone like Daniel Jones, you're looking at this Colts team like, hey, they have a really good running back. They have a good wide receiver core. They have, an offensive line that's in flux, but still a pretty good offensive line. And you're probably going to start a handful of games this season, regardless if you win a competition or not. So he's going to get a chance to play probably next season. Like, I'm going to sit here and say that I hope that we never see Daniel Jones throw a football in a regular season game for the Colts, because that means that Anthony Richardson stayed healthy and was doing good things on the field. But in all likelihood, we're going to see Daniel Jones play at some point next season. So this is an opportunity for him to come in here and have a pretty good environment around him to put some more film on tape or put some more film out there for other teams and maybe land a full-time starting job in the next season. So that's kind of where his thought process again, I don't think this is going to be like a true competition, but I'm assuming we're going to see Daniel Jones at some point this next season. Now, when it comes to my overall thoughts on the signing, I'm not the biggest fan of it. Like, cap hit aside, like I think the cap hit's honestly the biggest argument against this signing, just because, look, this Colts team, they made some really good signings yesterday. Cameron Bynum coming in here, Charvarius Ward coming in here. Those are really good, strong signings that help this secondary. But for me personally, I feel like I would have rather wanted to see like as much cap space used as possible to improve this roster. Like the $14 million that you're spending on Daniel Jones to be, a spot starter on backup that's going to push Anthony Richardson in camp and such like that. I think that could have been better used to, maybe get like a Will Fries back, or just get another guard in here, or get, more offensive line help in here, or it could have been used to go out there and get a free agent tight end, or it could have been used to go get a veteran linebacker on the market. Like I'm not saying that the Colts can't do these things. There's still avenues to create more cap space, and they can certainly push things to the future when it comes to Michael Pittman Jr.'s deal and when it comes to DeForest Buckner's deal. But I would have liked to have seen every bit of cap space used to improve this team and really go for this last hurrah with Anthony Richardson. Like, if it works, it works, or it doesn't work, so be it. But to spend almost $14 million in one season on Daniel Jones, who I'm not sure is really that great of a quarterback anyway, I'm not a huge fan of it. And then you come just to the fact of the player himself. I mean, this is going to sound egregious because I know that once a player touches the Colts roster, we need to have this homerism about him. But for me personally, when I look at what Daniel Jones has put on film the last two seasons or last season or so with the New York Giants, and I look at just what this offense wants to be and what this offense wants to do, personally, I think this is going to be the worst veteran quarterback who's played under Shane Steichen in Indianapolis. And, I don't think Joe Flacco or Gardner Minshew were particularly great. But for Flacco, he could operate in the vertical game a little bit. And he's a guy who had experience with what Shane Steichen wanted to do. When we look at Gardner Minshew was a fantastic RPO quarterback and a fantastic mesh quarterback, like the quick hitter quarterback. Now, he would never throw the ball down the field, and he had horrible pocket presence. But when I look at Daniel Jones, you kind of get the same pocket presence that you got with Gardner Minshew. You get the same timidness that you got with Gardner Minshew, but you don't get that plus RPO game. You don't get the exciting arm angles that Minshew threw with. You don't get some of the big things that Minshew could do kind of on the move at times in terms of his throwing the ball on the move, not like being an athlete or anything like that. So for me, I think this is not a very good quarterback either. Like, I just I don't know. I don't love this signing because I'm just not much of a believer in Daniel Jones as a quarterback. And this has nothing to do with Anthony Richardson. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's worse than Anthony Richardson, because Richardson hasn't been good either. Like, this is not anything to do with homerism towards Anthony Richardson. This is purely looking at Daniel Jones, and I just don't see it. I don't see much here that really helps the Colts. Like, even if he were a spot starter, I think he'd be one of the worst spot starters the Colts have had in recent seasons. Like, yeah, he's going to be better than what Nick Foles was, or maybe be better than what Sam Ehlinger was a couple years ago. But compared to like a Gardner Minshew 2 years ago at this point, I don't think he's going to reach the highs that Gardner Minshew hit even. And Gardner Minshew didn't hit that high of highs. So for me personally, it's a lot of money to give up that takes away from roster building. It's also towards a player who I just don't think is particularly good. I mean, we've really only seen him be good at being a quarterback once in his career, and it was when Dabble basically told him to, if your first read is not there, scramble. That was essentially what they did for the first half of that season, where it was first read and then scramble. He led the NFL in scramble yards that year. And then once it got late in the season, his stats started to fall because teams realized that's what he was doing. Like, I think he got every little bit squeezed out of him that season. That was kind of the best we were ever going to see from him. And I just don't know if he's even going to hit that high of what he hit that one season with Dabble. So yeah, for me, I'm just not a Daniel Jones believer. I don't love this signing as a player. I don't love the money spent towards it. But at the end of the day, if it accomplishes what the Colts want it to accomplish, and it pushes Anthony Richardson, and it makes Anthony Richardson a better quarterback, and maybe he's able to come in a couple of games when Richardson's hurt or benched or whatever, and he's able to win a couple games, then I'll gladly say I'm wrong and eat my words on it. But for me personally, I don't love this signing. I'm not a big Daniel Jones guy. I would have preferred a cheaper option that was honestly a better quarterback, but so be it. So be it. Daniel Jones to Indianapolis, 1 year, nearly $14 million cap hit for this one season, with escalators that could get it up to nearly $18 million this next season. We'll see if it ends up being a good one for the Colts, but personally, it is definitely like not a great signing for me. Not nearly as great, obviously, as the other two signings. It doesn't ruin the offseason for me because I love the other two signings so much for the Colts, but I just personally cannot get on board with Daniel Jones with the Colts. But you guys let me know in the comment section what you think. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic here. I just know I'm not a big Daniel Jones fan at this point in his career. But coming up, we're going to talk about this Colts roster and kind of what they need to do the rest of the offseason. They're still not done in free agency. I'll lay out my case for why there will still be some more moves from the Indianapolis Colts this offseason and kind of where those moves could be. But first, this show is sponsored by Betterhelp. Taking care of your mental health can feel like a big investment, but it's just as important as taking care of your body. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session. But with Betterhelp, you can save up to 50% per session. Betterhelp offers a flat fee for weekly online therapy sessions, making professional support more accessible and affordable. With over 30,000 therapists and over 5 million people helped, it's the world's largest online therapy platform. Personally, I've been to therapy multiple times in my life for social anxiety disorder, for depression, for anxiety in general. Therapy has been a great crutch for me in my life, and it's really helped me just get back to being who I want to be and just get grounded with reality again when I hit my low points. So I highly recommend therapy and just having someone to talk to. Because you guys, look, your well-being is very much worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Alrighty, Locked On Colts Everydayers. We are back talking about this Indianapolis Colts roster. And before we actually dive into the team needs and the overall roster, I do need to comment on this because it's something that I obviously needed to talk about. The Colts did officially lose Will Fries today to the Minnesota Vikings. 5 years, $88 million, $44 million guaranteed, $34 million fully guaranteed at signing. My boy got the bag, and I'm heartbroken to see Will Fries leave. And I constantly said all offseason that if the Colts let Will Fries walk in free agency, it would be the biggest mistake of Ballard's career when it comes to free agency in terms of letting a guy walk, like even bigger than letting Bobby Okereke walk or bigger than Danico Autry walking. But I am going to reverse course just a little bit. I kind of said that in the thought process that Ballard wouldn't spend in free agency. I just thought the options here were give the money to Will Fries or don't give the money to Will Fries, because that's typically what it's been for the Colts in the past. But when you see how the money has been allocated to get Charvarius Ward here, to get Cameron Bynum here, I'm fine with letting Will Fries walk. I love Will Fries to death. He is a guy that I've gotten to know since before he came to the Colts, since he was a draft prospect. I've gotten to know his family a little bit over the years. He's just such a pleasant guy, great guy. I love seeing him build up his career, and I wish him all the best with the Minnesota Vikings. But I totally agree with the Colts letting him walk if it means getting Bynum and getting Charvarius Ward here in Indianapolis. So Matt Gonsalves probably will be the right guard next season, and Will Fries hopefully is killing it there with Minnesota. But let's transition that now into what we're looking at here with this Colts offense and this Colts just roster in general in terms of what their needs are. So we're looking at this Colts team, and they've lost Will Fries on offense, so they do have to change a lot on the offensive line. They lost Ryan Kelly as well. So as of right now, we're looking at Tanner Bortolini slotting in at center. We're looking at Matt Gonsalves slotting in at right guard. And behind those guys, we don't have much depth on this team right now. Wesley French is currently back with the team. He re-signed. And then also when we're looking at Danny Pinter will probably be re-signed at some point tonight or tomorrow as well. So those guys will be back as depth, but I don't say those guys are like bona fide, solidified depth on this team. So they need to continue to add to the offensive line. We look at the tackle position. Braden Smith is back as a starting right tackle. Bernhard Raimann, obviously at left tackle. But Blake Freeland is the only guy behind those guys at tackle. And yes, you can get creative and put Gonzalez out there at right tackle if anything were to happen to Braden Smith, but the Colts obviously want to add more of a swing tackle to this team to solidify that depth. When we look at other positions on this team, at tight end, the Colts are currently only rostering Albert Abukanem. I think that's how you say his name. Albert O from the Broncos and Eagles. We're looking at Will Mallory. We're looking at Drew Ogletree. Those are the only tight ends on the roster right now. So obviously the Colts have a need at tight end still. They haven't done any additions there. At running back, the only running backs on the roster are Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Goodson, and Savon Ahmed. So more needed at running back. We go over to the defensive side of the ball. The roster's looking better on defense now because we go from a cornerback room that was led by Jalen Jones, Juju Branch, and Samuel Womack, and obviously Kenny Moore in the slot, to now being a cornerback room with Charvarius Ward at the top. Then you have Jalen Jones versus Juju Branch versus Sam Womack for that other outside corner spot, along with Kenny Moore in the slot. So that cornerback room's looking better. At safety, that now they add Bynum with Nick Cross. They still probably need a third safety, but you like that starting group at safety. At linebacker, we're looking at Zaire Franklin next to Jalen Carlies right now, so maybe they could still add at linebacker. And on the defensive line, yes, they lost Dayo Adangbo. Yes, Taven Bryan, unfortunately, is hitting free agency. We'll see if the Colts bring him back, but Taven Bryan is gone, and Raekwon Davis is gone, so we could see, a defensive tackle addition or a defensive end addition, but that's kind of where the state of the roster is right now. Obviously, I didn't go through all 65 guys that are currently on the roster, but you can kind of see from that where the needs are on the team. Like at quarterback, I don't think they're going to be adding any more quarterbacks. Wide receiver, I don't think they're going to be adding much there. But outside of that, I think every other position on the roster is up for debate in terms of where they should add and what they should do with this team going forward in free agency. And one thing I really want to add here is the Colts, when free agency officially kicks off tomorrow I think it's at noon or at 4. I can't remember exactly what time it is tomorrow. But when free agency officially kicks off, the Colts will have 65 players under contract. And that's including the 5 players that they've signed in terms of the 3 outside free agents, Wesley French and Ashton Dulin, who they are bringing back. So they'll have 65 guys under contract. The Colts need to get up to 90 for training camp. And even if you factor in 7 draft picks plus a handful of undrafted free agents, the Colts still need to add bodies to this team. Now, I expect there to be some guys brought back from Grant Stewart will probably be back because Grant Stewart is beloved by this team, beloved by the front office. So Grant Stewart will probably be back. Danny Pinter will probably be back. I'm sure we'll see some other guys coming back as well. But the Colts still need to add some free agents to this team and some veteran players to fill out the roster and just bring this roster up to snuff. So yeah, I think there are some needs still. Like I could still go for another veteran corner. I could still go for a third safety because I don't really feel it with Roddy Thomas anymore as that third safety. A veteran linebacker wouldn't hurt. More defensive line help wouldn't hurt. More offensive line depth. Like there still are plenty of needs on this Colts roster, and they have a lot of space on the roster in terms of bodies that they need to add. So I would expect the Colts before the draft to add another 4 to 6 signings to this team. I'll put my unofficial count at 4 to 6 signings. Now that could be taken up again, like 2 to 3 of those could be re-signing in-house guys. But I do think we're going to see like 4 to 6 signings from the Colts going forward, especially like an edge rusher. And I think we'll see like a veteran safety or a veteran corner coming in here as well. So coming up, we're going to go through some potential names the Colts could add to fill that. Again, I think they're going to need to add like 4 to 5 to 6 guys to this team. So let's go over some free agents that are out there that make some sense. Some guys who, like, I'm not saying stuff I've heard or anything like that, but just guys that, again, connecting the dots make a lot of sense to come to the Indianapolis Colts here in free agency. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates and their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, All you can do to get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live, full service, real-time updates, only an iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Alrighty, guys. So we're going to talk about now going forward what moves I could see the Colts making, what players they could add, maybe what players they could subtract going forward. Like, let's see what this Colts team could do in free agency, because I don't think they're done in free agency. Like, I think they're done with wave one of free agency, but let's see what they could do just in terms of adding or subtracting from this roster in waves 2, waves 3, and maybe waves 4 prior to getting to the NFL draft here at the end of April. So first off, to talk about the big one, obviously, that people always want to talk about, and that is Trey Hendrickson. Is there a chance the Colts could still be in the market for Trey Hendrickson? I'm not going to say completely no. I'm going to say it's extremely unlikely at this point because, like last night, we got kind of excited looking at the Charvarius Ward contract and looking at the Cameron Bynum contract and saying like, hey, they are backloading these deals. They're opening up more space right now to operate with right now. It's looking good that they could make a swing for a Trey Hendrickson. But then when the Daniel Jones contract numbers came in and it got up to $14 million in 1 year for Daniel Jones, it seems very unlikely that they can make the move for Trey Hendrickson. Now, if they really do want to get Trey Hendrickson, they still have avenues to get that. Like they can restructure Quentin Nelson. They can restructure Michael Pittman Jr. They can restructure DeForest Buckner. And also on top of that, they can cut Rodney Thomas, cut Samson Ebukam. Like there are plenty of ways to get Trey Hendrickson to Indy with the money. But look, the Colts have already spent so much in free agency. I'm not going to count on them doing even more to be, it's just so different from what the Colts have ever done. And people say, trade the Bengals like players to save money. If the Bengals are moving on from Trey Hendrickson, they're trying to save all that money. The reason why they move him is to save all that money. They're not going to take money back. So I just don't see an avenue for the Colts. Like they could, don't get me wrong, they could do it, but I'm going to say it's like a 1% chance. Like I think Hendrickson in a perfect world would want to come to Indy because he loves Lou Anarumo. I think Lou Anarumo in a perfect world would want Trey Hendrickson to Indy. Do I think it's realistic at this point? Probably not. So Trey Hendrickson, not completely ruling it out, but I just don't see it happening. When we look at other players on this Colts roster, though, in terms of talking trades and talking other moves, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Colts continue to shuffle around this secondary a little bit. And when I say shuffle around, I still think they could just add in some veteran type guys and add in some more veteran corners that work with this system. And as a result, we could see some guys being on the way out. Like I wouldn't be shocked to see, Rodney Thomas get cut. Rodney Thomas, if the Colts were to cut him right now, they would save over $3 million in cap space. That's an easy way to save cap for a player who just didn't touch the field last year on defense and really isn't much of a special teams player either. So I could certainly see him being a guy on the way out. Another one I would watch too is Juju Brents for a potential trade or cut candidate as well. Juju Brents, I think at this point, is the Colts' fourth outside corner. He doesn't really have the long speed to really work in this system. Now, I say that because Jalen Jones also doesn't have the long speed to work in this system, but Jones has just been on the field and been a consistent player, so I think they'll still give him that chance, where Juju Brents just hasn't been healthy, and he hasn't really been particularly good when he's been on the field. So I could see the Colts trying to give him a fresh start somewhere else with the new system that he just doesn't really fit in. So I could still see some shuffles coming in that secondary. I don't think the Colts are done whatsoever when it comes to the defensive back room, but I'm not going to say those are super likely. I'm just saying, I'm just kind of speaking my mind right now when it comes to those type of moves. That's not any kind of info that I'm getting from the team. What I really do think that we're going to see from the Colts going forward is I think we're going to see a couple more veterans added on defense in terms of just, again, some guys like in the late 20s, early 30-year-old range or whatever, just to get more experience on this defense, more competition on this defense, and more familiarity with this type of scheme that the Colts are adjusting to. So again, like a Shaquille Griffin type at corner, just to get a veteran in here who knows what he's doing. We could see some linebacker additions just to, again, just boost the competition level there. I think where we're really going to see is them add at edge rusher. If you look at the edge rush room right now, it's kind of, I don't want to say bare, but the depth is a little bit concerning, especially with Ebukam coming off his big injury and with Tyquan Lewis kind of having a down year last year. I think we could see the Colts add to that edge rusher room. And I think particularly we're going to look to add an edge rusher that can also rush inside. They were interested in Joseph Osai, who went back to the Cincinnati Bengals. So we could see them look for a similar type of player like Osai or like Dayo Odengbo, who, again, they're mostly outside edge rushers, but they can moonlight as an interior guy on those passing downs and provide a little bit of a boost. I mean, one guy I was really looking at, and I think the money might be a little tough here with the Colts because of where they're at with the cap, but like a Charles Omenihu, for instance, from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's a guy who can make a ton of sense as an inside-out rusher who gives the team a little bit of a boost. Could totally see that there. Charles Omenihu, Zadarius Smith. He's another older guy, but a guy who had 9 sacks last year at 33 years old. Get him in here, be a sub rotation like rusher, and I think he'd be a good player for the Colts. I'd also keep an eye on them adding at swing tackle. I know I just mentioned it when I was talking about the roster, but when you look at the offensive line, if Gonçalves moves to right guard, they don't really have a swing tackle or a guy who can play for when Braden Smith misses time. And I know that the personal issue for Braden Smith was kind of an anomaly last year, but he's had a lot of injuries recently, like a lot of injuries the last couple of seasons, and he's missed some time in these last few years. So the Colts can't count on him playing every single game, so they do have to invest in that swing tackle position. And you can't just count on kicking Gonçalves out there because then you have a hole at right guard. So I do think we'll see them invest a little bit at the swing tackle spot, whether it's a new draft pick coming in, whether it's grabbing like a Storm Norton or a George Fant or someone like that on the open market. I think that would make a lot of sense for the Colts. And also, I think we need to see them just grab a tight end, just a warm body tight end, a guy who can actually play the position. Like, I do think we need to see a tight end brought in here because, again, right now we're looking at Drew Ogletree and we're looking at Will Mallory and Alberto. Those are the 3 tight ends on the roster. And right now, I don't know if any of those guys make the team next year. I mean, I think Ogletree will make the team, but I don't know if Mallory or Alberto make the team next year. So they do need to add more bodies. Like, yes, their target could be a Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland or Mason Taylor in the draft. But even then, you still need to add more bodies to this tight end room because they just don't have anybody on the team right now. Mo Alley Cox is a free agent. Kylan Granson's a free agent. Those guys are not going to be returning to the team. So you could totally see them investing in a tight end. I think like a Chris Manhertz, for instance, from the Giants, a good blocking tight end who's just been here, done that. I think we'll see them add to the tight end room at some point. So again, to summarize all this rambling I've done in these last 2 segments here to end today's show, the Colts, I think, are at 65 guys under contract once free agency starts tomorrow. Now, again, that doesn't factor in re-signing a guy like a Pinter or Grant Stewart. So we'll give or take anywhere between 65 and 68 guys under contract. Even accounting for the draft picks and the undrafted free agents coming in, the Colts still need to bring in 4, 5, 6, up to 7 new bodies in free agency. So the Colts are certainly not done with free agency. I think they will bring in more guys, more veterans to the team. I would fully expect to see an edge rusher signed at some point, hopefully a tight end signed at some point, maybe a swing tackle. Oh, and one more name. I mean, Von Bell, the safety from the Cincinnati Bengals, who has just been with Lou Anarumo for most of his career. I'd be shocked if Von Bell didn't come back in some capacity as well to bring the Colts a third safety or just a veteran safety to the team as well. So the Colts are certainly not done adding this free agency. I do think that they are done with their big additions. I don't see a Trey Hendrickson trade. I don't see, any other big moves coming. But the Colts are certainly not done in free agency, and we'll have to keep an eye on what happens. And we'll be here on Locked On Colts to break it all down as it happens for you guys. But I do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen this evening. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now the season is over. Get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every single day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings and reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening.